Can I ask a follow-up?
I've got some other questions here, but
to that particular point, I just wanted to know, as a result of all these meetings that you've just talked about, have you actually been able to change anything or address any concern that the children raised?
Well, the issues when I went to the event, I was talking to them as what we do, but they didn't actually ask about changes or what. It was what they're doing and what's happening in their school.
Fair enough.
So they didn't ask me to do anything.
Yes.
As I say, I wasn't privy to the vote, but these were groups of people that did not have strong political views when they started, did not have a long background or history or understanding of the parties, so I think we were giving the short pitch to each group, and I hope that it was helpful to them, but I couldn't possibly tell you if any minds were changed or made up.
Thank you.
okay, thank you so much for that. Mr. Andrew Roberts, Trumpton Residents Association, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair. My question concerns the delayed move of the Trumpeter medical practice to the Clay Farm Centre. This is partly addressed on page 17 in response to the similar question I asked at the last forum. I'm grateful for the feedback from Councillors O'Connell and Thornborough about the very slow progress. As is noted, this was raised in full council in February, and there continues to be very limited information to residents about the reasons for and the completion date of the move of the medical practice, and this is causing considerable concern and genuine problems for many residents. So if either councillor has further information, I'd be grateful, but I would also be grateful if this can continue to be on the agenda as an issue of real concern.
I'm afraid I don't have any more information, but I have been in touch with the head of community services about the lack of information, and there is a meeting being arranged, and hopefully there'll be more information. But I have stressed, as Zoe O'Connell has stressed, that the lack of information is causing rumours and I think making the situation worse, so some clarity is needed.
Tricky those mics, aren't they? Mr. Oakes, is next on my list. Please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. There seems to be a lowering of the water levels in Cherry Hinton Brook, and it's a question of general concern from several points of view, but would you know, I'm sure you wouldn't know offhand, whether Cam's Water were increasing their abstraction. I mean, they're allowed to take a certain amount of water from the brook, but it would be interesting to know whether they'd increase that amount or not.
Yeah, Councillor Gordon.
That's not the only area where the water levels have been dropping around here. You'll find in lots of other places as well. It might be the weather, we're not getting a lot of rain, I'm not sure.
Well, it could be a combination of factors, but I'm particularly concerned with the ones that we can control. And, you know, I think you have to know from Cam Water if they are taking more out, because it's affecting the general level of health in the brook, as I'm sure you're aware. Thank you, Chair.
Actually, I think it's a really good question, and there's no reason why we shouldn't ask that, so we will ask it. So we'll put that as an action point. I think that's a very good question, so thank you. Next on my list is Sue Wells, Friends of Cherry Hinton Brook, as it so happens.
Thanks very much. My question was actually about the name change to the lakes, because the residents of Birdside itself and the surrounding streets had no idea this was happening until it came out in the Cambridge News, and there are a lot of concerns because we think that's going to lead to the understanding that this is Birdside's the access point for the lakes, and there are already a lot of problems with access, parking, etc. And I think this will only increase the issues around those streets. So we'd like to know why that name was chosen, and if perhaps further thought could be given to that. And if I could also say, I hadn't realised there was going to be a representative of Anderson's here tonight. We would very much like an update on what is happening in the lakes and for the lakes. We understood that the consultation about the lakes and the opening up of those, that there would be follow-up this year, but it's been very, very silent on that front. I did approach the consultants who did the previous focus group meetings, and they weren't able to help me on this, so I think it's about time for an update on that, given that the scoping report is now out that was referred to earlier. And if I'm allowed to just pick up on the water level, we did raise that point last year, or possibly the year before. Friends of Cherry Hinton Brook raised that with Cam Water, and our understanding is that the brook, along with Hobson's Conduit, fails to meet the criteria required under the Framework Water Directive. I'm not an expert in this at all, and that the Environment Agency was under an obligation to look into this, and a report was due at the end of last year, but we haven't heard anything about this. And we, Friends of Cherry Hinton Brook, have also been getting inquiries about the water level in the brook, so I would urge you, if possible, to help us find out what's happening.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you wish to respond to any of that on the lakes, or?
Yes, I can.
Because I must admit, I've no idea how the name Burnside was actually arrived at, and I too had a similar thought that might direct traffic into that area. So I think people would be quite interested if you do have a response. That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and yeah, happy to respond to your points raised, and if I forget one or two, please do jog my memory. The reference to the name change, that has essentially come at the request of the Cambridge Lakes Golf Club. They have the trademark for Cambridge Lakes, and they were apprehensive about that being used in the press. So between ourselves, the Anderson Group, and the City Council, we agreed to a temporary name change in terms of referencing. Obviously going forward in terms of the permanent reference, we will be doing further consultation on that. So it's purely to try and differentiate that between that and the Lakes golf course. In terms of an update, we did send out an update a couple of weeks ago, and apologies if you've been missed off that circulation list. As Councillor Ashton referenced earlier, we have recently submitted an EIA scoping request to the Council, which is currently being considered. We have also continued to do pre-application discussions with them. So we actually will be doing further public consultation this year. We're just not at the point to confirm specific dates, etc. I can also just respond to the point of the water level, if that's helpful. Whilst we're not obviously impacting upon the water level in the lakes is historically low for this time of year. The lakes obviously feed into the Cherry Hinton Brook, so that may explain it to some degree. If there's anything else I've missed there, please do share.
Okay, that's really helpful. And also you'll be at the Cherry Hinton Residents Association on 25th of April for a presentation there?
Absolutely, yes, confirmed. We will be there that day.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. I have one more question if Dan agrees here somewhere. Hiding around the corner.
Hello, Chair.
This may well be moved on to Artemate, but please ask your question.
I'll give you the abbreviated version first. So my question is about antisocial behaviour, in particular to the allocation of police resources. And so my question is, firstly, is that something I can ask now, or is it better in a later item?
I would go to item, because I know you did actually send me a notification of that, and having looked at it, I think that would probably be good under item 8, and Sergeant may well be able to help us out on that one.
We'll talk soon.
Are there any other questions? Going once? Going twice? Nearly made it.
Sorry, again, please forgive me if this isn't the right time.
Sorry, could I just ask you to give us your name if you're happy with that?
Yes, it's Ruth Overme Cook. I was just wondering whether I heard some rumours, which may or may not be true. I don't know. That's why I'm asking. That the recent exercise of draining the Cherry Hinton Hall lake in order to remove some bad plants had actually caused some other problems, and that one of the bits of collateral damage was a vast increase of the silt in the brook, which I know subjectively appears to be the case. And I was just wondering what actions are being taken to address the problems resulting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I thought you wanted to ask a question, sorry.
We have in the audience one of the friends of Cherry Hinton Hall, David Taylor, who's been working closely on drainage. So if the chair gives permission, I'm sure David can give an update as to what's happening in regards to drainage and any silt problems.
Yeah, delighted to answer that question. Well done, David. Thank you.
Good evening. I will try to answer some questions if I can. The foliage that has been choking the water basically from the bottom end of Giant's Grave through the backs of Forest Road into the early part of Cherry Hinton Hall. If you looked over the bridge in Forest Road at one time, you could not see water at all. The type of growth there, I understand, was some, they call it New Zealand weed, but quite what this weed is, and it really did choke up the hall. A couple of years ago, we did have the Hall lakes, for want of a better word, completely drained, and also all the mud and silt taken out, so that helped. But since that has been done, this weed, quite a ferocious sort of weed, has come back, and it has been cleared twice. What they have tried to do is, while they're clearing the weed, they didn't stop the water this time, but they have put very fine mesh nets across the water to try to prevent it going down the stream, mainly through the hall and certainly down through the Cherry Hinton Brook. There is some more work still to be done, but a lot of it has been removed, and it is a lot better now. If I can answer any more questions, I'll gladly do so.
So, thank you for the update, and that's helpful, but my question was mostly about downstream from the Cherry Hinton Hall lakes and the silt that seemed to pile up a lot.
In terms of the silt, I assume that you're talking of the mud type silt. To be honest with you, I failed to see how it can come over the waterfall and downstream from the prevention measures that were put in at the time. I can understand possibly some of the seeds from the weed perhaps working their way through, that it might be possible. But I can't understand, to be honest with you, how the silt gets down there.
What? Suspended in the water?
I don't know about these various geology things like that. I can only tell you on the work that has been done throughout the past couple of years. You know, I'm just trying to put some sort of
No,
focus
that's fair
on it.
enough. Thank you, David. Yeah, that's a good response. Mr. Carpen, you're next.
Just very quickly, on the naming of the Cambridge lakes, I put a blog post out some time ago suggesting that the lakes could be named after some of the individuals that built modern Cambridge. Thinking in particular in the village we're currently in, Cherry Hinton. The first woman councillor to serve Cherry Hinton was a certain Mabel Fell, and she was the woman who passed the motion on Cambridge City Council to get Cherry Hinton Hall into council ownership, turning it into the park that we all use today, but most of us have forgotten who she was. And she was a councillor, I think, still in her 20s when she got that motion moved just before World War II. So those are the sorts of people I think we should be naming the new features in the proposed country park after. Thank you.
Gentleman back there, please.
Who will name the lakes? Can you hear me?
No.
If you could tell us who you are, sir, that would be great.
David Brooks of the Friends of the Cherry Hinton Brook. Who will name the lakes?
Very good question. I'm not sure anyone's got the answer to that, just no.
we're not always sure who names us. Imagine the council will have some involvement, but whenever you name anything, or street or building after a person, first of all you've got to approach the families to make sure that they actually want their names to be named after something. So it's quite a bit of a process sometimes to get names for buildings or places. So I don't know, imagine Anderson might want to be involved with it as well.
Chair.
Please.
Perhaps we might have an action to find out about that process and
That's just what's going through my mind now, because I'm sorry, because I can't answer that question. I'm thinking it's a very good, it's a very good question, it's a simple one, but I don't know the answer.
I'll defer to ward councillors or the chair, whoever wants to take the action.
Sure. So yeah, we'll do it. Yeah.
I think there may be some 6 spare seats on the other side.
Oh, I just wanted to ask a question, but I don't know if it's
There's some people standing with, like, if you want to sit down.
Okay, there was someone else indicated over here, but I can't remember who it was. No? Okay, we'll go to you now, madam.
Oh, hello, I'm Sarah Gonsall. I live just off Cornelius Way. I had a question about cycle lanes. So I cycle my 1.5-year-old to nursery every day, and I don't feel it's very safe down Cornelius Way. And I understand that previously, before I moved and we moved into the area, there was a proposal to put cycle lanes down the road, which was one of the deciding factors in us choosing to live there. And I haven't heard anything further about that. And I'm also concerned because although it's a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, in my observation is that almost nobody observes that. And so I had a dual question about how we could better enforce the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, and also what had happened to the cycle lane proposal and whether that could be re-looked into, please.
Okay, we might get some of those answers perhaps on the next item, but the 20 miles an hour, I'm sure Kevin will back me up, is something that's contentious all over the city. The enforcement or lack thereof, because it isn't enforceable, but we'll leave the police officer to expand on that. Amanda.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sarah, for your question. You're right, the proposal came up for the cycle lanes a few years ago. I can tell you the officers did a fair amount of consultation. They have been doing further consultation recently, particularly with Leatherhall School, in the interest of making it safe for everybody. Now, I believe the intention is for that to take place after the Queen Edith's Way roundabout change is going. In response to your other question about the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, you're quite right, it's not observed, and there have been 2 pretty bad accidents with pupils from Leatherhall School on that road. One of the small things that we've done is applied for some motor vehicle activated speed cameras which flash up the speed that you're going at when you go past it. Funding has been approved for one outside the school and also at the other end of Queen Edith's Way, but we're waiting for the City Council to arrange for those to be installed. And I think the cycling officers will expand on the first point later in the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the question. I think it's really important that we do have quite a lot of consultation with the public and talk about this issue, because we have seen those bad accidents down that road. We know that it's on the agenda for the officers to bring that project back to us at some point, and they are extremely busy. There's a project right in front of us that we're going to hear an update on today, which I think is quite an exciting one, but it still has a lot of a way to go yet in terms of getting it right for everybody. And I know that it's their intention to bring the Queen Edith's Way section of that back up after that's done. And I think the reason that that's important is if you look at the 2 projects that we're going to be given an update on today, they are at either end of Queen Edith's Way. From Robin Hood pub up to Fenton Road roundabout is the stretch that the question is about today. And if we don't provide a trustworthy cycle network, a joined up network such that somebody who has got a young baby can get on their bike outside their house and get on a cycle lane that looks like it's going to do the job for them, and then they get past the first roundabout and it runs out and throws them into the middle of a dangerous road. We know that we've got this problem right across the city, And we need to do our best to provide, as I say, a trustworthy network, one that you could get on and trust that it will take you to the city without just disappearing and becoming a dangerous situation for you. In terms of the speed, my understanding, and perhaps Councillor Taylor will correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you put these measures in place, and it's true of the Fenland Road roundabout project where they are tightening the circle of the roundabout, slowing down the traffic by providing less room for the cars. And that was part of the previous recommendations for Queen Edith's Way. So I hope that they will do something along those lines as well, because it just doesn't look like a 20-mile an hour road.
You drive down it and it feels like a 40 zone, so I understand why people, it's very counterintuitive to drive more slowly. So I think you need to physically change the road feel in order for people to drive.
Perhaps, Chair, we could ask the officer to bring back a report to us just to give us the status of that project at a future date.
I see no reason why not. It's been some time now, hasn't it? So yeah, why not? I think that's fair.
We are going to give you a bit of an update.
That's why I said on the next item that will be picked up. That was my first comment. I didn't ignore you. I thought that would be picked up.
I am looking forward to those formal updates on those two projects, Chair. But if we could have a specific report on this project as to where it is now, where we left it, and when we're thinking about picking it up.
Yep, and we will understand a bit more after the next item.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Confirmation that on Queen Edith's Way it's a shared path for cyclists and pedestrians, so cyclists are allowed to go on the path already, whereas in Cherry Hinton they're not allowed to go on the path. So if the lady is concerned with cycling with youngsters at the moment, till we get the measures in place, there's no reason why she can't cycle on the pavement for safety.
Which I do, however, I don't think it's very conducive to cycling, nor do I think that pedestrians are particularly grateful for having cyclists. And when I pull my child, I have a trailer that's about this wide, and so every time I meet a pedestrian, and obviously there are many pedestrians along that road, I have to get off, walk around the pedestrian and continue, which I don't think sort of means that there's equitable use of the road for different road users.
Okay, I think we're just about done on that.